President Trump's election fight carries on. The latest on a new Supreme Court case. Plus, a vaccine on the horizon.
We can act quickly, and we intend to. We understand the urgency of the situation.
The plan to distribute the COVID vaccine across America. Plus,
the reality is it's sort of in a league of its own. Facebook itself is massive.
Why the United States government is targeting Facebook in new lawsuits. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
During the deadliest days of the coronavirus crisis, a vaccine close to distribution. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Tara Mergener. The FDA is deciding the fate of an emergency authorization for Pfizer's COVID vaccine. Once approved, Health Secretary Alex Azar says inoculations could begin in as little as 24 hours. On Tuesday, the first Pfizer vaccinations were given in the UK, where there have been reports of some allergic reactions. The head of the FDA saying today that's why his agency is so diligent ahead of approval.
This is the reason we do such a detailed review, because our labeling of any product, and certainly this vaccine, will be not just who should get it, but who should not receive the vaccine.
Now, once distribution begins, states will decide who receives the doses first. The CDC has recommended healthcare workers and those in long-term care facilities like nursing homes.
Well, Congress could be getting a little closer to a deal on the next coronavirus relief bill. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying today lawmakers are making progress in negotiations over a $908 billion relief plan outlined last week.
I have great respect for the bipartisan group of folks, mostly senators, but some of our folks, Josh Gottheimer from the House, who are engaged in conversations about this bill. It is a smaller bill than we think is needed for our country.
Pelosi says although this bill includes less money than Democrats had originally called for, she believes there has been a change in dynamics, saying that the incoming Biden administration will view the $900 billion plan as just a starting point. Well, those negotiations come as unemployment numbers rise, due in large part to a surge in coronavirus cases around the country. Today's Labor Department report shows 853,000 applied for unemployment aid last week. That's up from 716,000 the week prior, and the highest amount since September. Overall, more than 19 million people currently depend on the government for some type of unemployment relief.
All right, here with us now is Mark Hamrick, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst at Bankrate. Mark, what do you make of this big jump in unemployment applications?
Well, Tara and John, I think that we have been bracing ourselves from some demonstration of cost to the economy from the fact that we're at a place with this pandemic where we don't want to be. The record number of cases, you see not only restrictions being put in place by governments in reaction, and I think you're seeing consumers essentially taking increased caution, which means less mobility, and the economy having a cost to that. So it doesn't surprise me, even though the number itself was surprising. We've said all along, this is the 38th week of the economic downturn related to the pandemic. We've said all along that until we get the pandemic under control, the economy cannot fully heal. And so if our elected officials in Washington wanted a demonstration as to perhaps the urgency of the situation, they got that from the U.S. Labor Department.
Mark, we've seen a good number of jobs added to the economy in the last couple of months, some of that due to seasonal hiring. But a new job doesn't necessarily mean household incomes are automatically back to normal, right?
No, not at all, John. And I would just hasten to add there that the jobs that we saw added last month were the least of the economic recovery. And when we have this number of new claims for unemployment benefits, that number was essentially 3 times what we had the number of jobs added for all of the last month. We just completed a survey at Bankrate. We posted that on the site. It finds that a majority of households have suffered a loss in income since the downturn, and many Americans believe it'll be 6 months until they are made whole. 6% don't believe they'll ever recover.
Mark, let's talk COVID relief on Capitol Hill. Nancy Pelosi sounding optimistic about this $900 billion bipartisan bill Do you think we will actually see a measure passed before lawmakers head home for the holiday?
Well, I've lived in Washington a long time, and I can't tell you what iteration we're now in of the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. But it does feel as if elected officials are speaking with more urgency. And indeed, you have the pandemic at its worst. You have the economy beginning to fade here. There is a risk of another contraction or downturn. So I don't think there's any question as to what they ought to do. The question is, will they do it?
Mark, real quickly here, stopgap measures headed to the president's desk to prevent a government shutdown taking effect tomorrow. Is a more permanent solution within reach?
I certainly hope so, John. But, President-elect Biden has said that even with the economic relief legislation, they're going to need another round after he takes office to get sort of the period taken care of April and beyond. The reality is this is no way to run a government. The fact that we keep kicking the can down the road, that seems to now be the new national pastime, kicking the can.
All right. Bank Rake's Mark Hamrick, thank you so much. We always appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. President Trump's effort to overturn the November election results could come down to a lawsuit filed by the Lone Star State. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is asking the Supreme Court to invalidate Electoral College votes in battleground states that Mr. Trump lost.
The legal argument is gaining some traction among some of his Republican peers. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us with the latest on the case. Ben?
Well, John and Tara, attorneys general in 18 other states have actually thrown their support behind this lawsuit. Pennsylvania did file an opposition today, writing it is legally indefensible and, quote, a seditious abuse of the judicial process.
The lawsuit alleges individual actors in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin changed election procedures, something only state legislators are allowed to do.
What Texas is arguing in this case is that the changes that were made in election rules in those 4 states, particularly with regard to absentee ballots, were made by government officials, not by the state legislature.
It means that if the court were to rule in favor of Texas, those 4 states, the states named in the complaint, would in fact have their state legislatures determine the outcome. They would pick the electors.
First, justices have to vote to hear the case. The suit asks the Supreme Court to delay certification of the Electoral College vote, plus determine a massive amount of votes are illegal, and then tell states to retally and resubmit their votes.
In a state-on-state suit, our only place to go is the U.S. Supreme Court. We can't be heard anywhere else. Other lawsuits start at a district court level, and they have a right to be heard at least once.
On Tuesday, the High Court rejected a bid by Republicans in Pennsylvania to void the results of the state's election. The same could happen to this case.
They make some pretty good arguments in the lawsuit that they have filed, but I'm not sure that the U.S. Supreme Court will want to take up a case that could potentially change the outcome of elections in 4 states.
As Hans was just talking about, we are now waiting to see if the Supreme Court will, in fact, take up this case. In the meantime, the Electoral College is set to vote on Monday, which would seal Joe Biden's win. John, Tara?
All right, CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Thanks so much, Ben. Well, joining us now, David Brody, CBN chief political analyst. David, how much does the 18 states joining Texas's legal challenge strengthen that case?
Oh, I think it strengthens it. I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, you've got now, 19 states total, including Texas, plus, there's a guy by the name of Donald Trump also suing in part of that lawsuit. So, look, I mean, here's my question, Tara and John. I mean, how do you not, if you're the Supreme Court, think about this, how do you not take up this case? I'm not saying rule in their favor. I'm just saying take up the case, and here's why. You got 19 states, you got the President of the United States, you have tens of millions of Americans that are very frustrated, believing that justice is not served. So there's already a bad taste in the mouth of all of these Americans. You would think the Supreme Court would say, hey, you know what, let's take up the case and so we can heal this country, whatever the outcome is. But to not take the case up, that's going to make things, I think, a whole lot worse.
David, let's play this out. The court accepts the argument, blocks certification, and allows state legislatures to decide who won, putting it in the hands of the House of Representatives. So what happens there?
Well, let's be clear. When you say the House of Representatives, you're right, Tara. It does go to the House. It actually goes to the House and Senate. It'll go to January 6th. And the Trump folks that I'm talking to inside the Trump campaign and some lawyers as well are all looking to that date. In other words, if it doesn't work out at the Supreme Court, if it doesn't work out at the state legislature level here before December 14th, they're going to play for one last Hail Mary on January 6th, which is the day the president of the Senate, which will be Mike Pence, will open up the Electoral College envelope. At that point, I don't want to get into all of the minutia at this point, but if you've got one congressman and one senator that object to the electors in certain states, then the House and Senate will have to take it up individually, and then it can get a little murky, and we can get into that maybe another time.
David, you know, in your first response, you talked about healing the country. I think the people on the other side of the debate say that if the courts, or if the Supreme Court rather, were to accept the Texas argument, it would be invalidating the vote of tens of millions of other voters. Would that throw the country into a constitutional crisis?
John, I think it's a great point, and I think that is the other side of it. And so you wonder two things. One, will the Supreme Court even take the case? But if they do, you wonder if something's going to happen here where, let's say, they might agree with the Texas lawsuit from a constitutional perspective. In other words, state legislatures are the ones that can make changes to election law, not state officials or governors or any of that. So they might agree with them on the merit of the case, but at the same time may not go so far in their opinion to say that it therefore should overturn the election because that might cause more harm than good.
And David, real quickly here, if this was the argument that the states are making, then why didn't they make the argument before the election as opposed to wait till afterwards?
Well, I think the way they're going to term it is that they had to wait to see how it plays out. In other words, they didn't know what hands until they finally had a bunch of election fraud, according to what they're saying, on their hands.
Okay. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, David Brody.
All right. Facebook faces big new lawsuits. We'll show you why the tech giant is facing new scrutiny when we come back.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Facebook facing major lawsuits alleging the social media company has abused its power in the marketplace, essentially becoming a digital monopoly. 48 states attorneys general filed an antitrust suit Wednesday accusing the business of suppressing its competition, saying over the years Facebook has illegally bought competitors in a, quote, predatory manner in order to preserve its market power. The Federal Trade Commission filed a separate suit in coordination with the states, saying the social media company needs to be broken up.
Well, for more on these lawsuits, we bring in Charlotte Slayman, an antitrust attorney and competition policy director at Public Knowledge. Charlotte, it's great to see you. We all know people use Facebook to connect with friends or share photos of the family or the grandkids. Perhaps, Charlotte, though, most aren't as familiar with the issues alleged in these suits. Can you explain how we got here?
Yes. So there are two major complaints that the state attorneys general and the Federal Trade Commission have made about Facebook's anti-competitive conduct. The first is that they have engaged in several anti-competitive acquisitions. The acquisition of Instagram is one example of that, as well as the acquisition of WhatsApp. And then the second claim is that they have been withholding important access to the Facebook network from competitors and potential competitors who would like to be able to be on the network. So between those two violations, I think there's a strong case to be made here.
What does it mean that these suits, Charlotte, are coming with such bipartisan support?
Yes, I think that's a huge indication that people across the country are concerned about the power of Facebook. I think it also shows us a preview of what might be able to happen in Congress. Congress has also been really interested in the power of Facebook and how to address it. The House Antitrust Subcommittee provided a very detailed report. They looked into Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Apple, the dominant digital platforms that are so powerful today, and found a lot of harms similar to the ones in this antitrust case. So the bipartisanship here, I think, is a really important factor for whether Congress will be able to legislate or not.
Charlotte, picking up on social media dominance, what's been Facebook's response so far?
So Facebook argues that consumers are free to choose an alternative if they're not happy with Facebook. I think that's not really accurate. So, of course, you can go to another social network, but the power that economists call network effects, the fact that all of our friends are on Facebook, makes it really difficult to choose an alternative. If you can't communicate with your friends when you switch to the new network, it's not going to be very interesting. It's not going to be very useful. So I don't agree with that argument from Facebook.
Well, now that the lawsuits have been filed, what comes next? Are we in for a long process before we see any conclusion in these cases?
Yes, absolutely. Antitrust cases take a long time, and I think it's very likely that there will be an appeal on either side, regardless of who wins in the first instance. So this could be going on for years.
Charlotte, what do you make of the suggestion that Facebook says, you know, these antitrust claims were already addressed before the acquisitions were approved?
Yes. So there is a pre-merger review process in the U.S. The Hart-Scott-Rodino Act requires that large mergers submit for pre-review to the Federal Trade Commission or the Department of Justice. But it's important to note that those agencies are not actually granting approval for mergers. They're simply an opportunity to sue to block the merger or not. So what happened here with the acquisition of WhatsApp and with the acquisition of Instagram is that Facebook submitted for that pre-review process, and the Federal Trade Commission said, we're not going to sue at this time. But that does not preclude them from being able to sue now.
All right, Charlotte Slayman, thank you so much for your time.
Of course, thank you.
Well, shining the spotlight on human rights, why people are pausing today to be a voice for those suffering around the world.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world-class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path. Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Well, welcome back. Morocco is the latest country to agree to normalize diplomatic relations with Israel. President Trump making that announcement today. The North African country becomes the 4th Arab nation in 4 months to make such a move, all as part of the Trump administration's Abraham Accords. The White House says the agreement will expand economic and cultural cooperation and advance stability in the region.
Today is Human Rights Day. That is a day some mark by remembering the people around the world who are jailed for expressing their beliefs or are simply deprived of basic rights like access to education and health care.
That's right, Tara. Human rights groups are shining a spotlight on injustices like Islam's blasphemy, if I can get it out, ruling. CBN George Thomas spoke with a member of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom about the controversial laws.
Anurima Bhargava, thank you so much for coming on the show. Today is Human Rights Day, and your commission is releasing a report on the state of blasphemy laws around the world. Before we get to the report, tell us real quickly what these blasphemy laws are and how widespread are they?
Blasphemy laws are laws that basically criminalize the act of insulting or showing any kind of contempt for God. And so anything that someone perceives as an insult or an offense towards God is something that may be criminalized. There are 84 countries that have blasphemy laws on the books right now, and more than half of them are enforcing those laws. And so it is something that we have seen quite a lot of activity, both in terms of the detention and arrest of individuals, but also these laws are used in many ways to intimidate those who may be in religious minority communities around the world.
You have a report, as I mentioned, out today on the global trends in the enforcement of blasphemy laws. What are the key findings?
So I think there's a couple of things. First, as I just mentioned, we see active enforcement of blasphemy laws in 43 of the countries, or 84 countries, as mentioned, that have blasphemy laws on the books. And of those countries that have active enforcement, we are seeing between 2014 and 2018, there are about 732 instances in which people were prosecuted under those kinds of blasphemy laws. And so we do see this as something that is a clear issue. There are about 10 countries where the bulk of the blasphemy prosecutions and activity and enforcement are occurring. And in those countries, we see a situation like in Pakistan where there are people who've been who've been prosecuted under blasphemy laws and are facing death penalty or other very severe offenses for everything from using the social media or comments that someone has perceived as being blasphemous in nature.
How do such laws violate international human rights?
Well, our view is that if there's a law that criminalizes someone being able to express their views on religion, their beliefs on religion, whether it is to believe or not to believe, that is something that interferes with the right to religious freedom, one that is protected in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And so these laws, by their very nature, have been found to be problematic under human rights standards. And the enforcement of these laws, particularly because the wording is often very vague. For all of those reasons, we have found repeatedly over the years that blasphemy laws are something that don't comport with human rights standards.
Despite years of attempts to repeal these laws, countries like Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey still continue to enforce them, right?
And to enforce them rigorously. So we have seen actually, unfortunately, in 2020, we continue to see the enforcement of these laws and even an uptick in countries like Pakistan. And so it's something that is of clear and consistent concern for the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom and for human rights bodies around the world.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. As always, Anurima, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Houston, we have a problem. We'll explain after this.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to CBN.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Well, finally tonight, it wasn't quite the rocket landing SpaceX scientists had hoped for.
It ended up being more of a crash. Nobody was hurt when the manned rocket barreled to the ground, exploding on impact. The ship had just wrapped up what was called a groundbreaking test flight 8 miles above Earth, but something went wrong, and the rocket had too much speed returning to the launch pad. The unnamed ship is SpaceX, a prototype that the company hopes will someday be used to transport people to Mars.
It's going to go boom every once in a while. This is why you test things before you put people on board and make sure that they're going to work.
Well, despite the crash, SpaceX head Elon Musk is optimistic about the future of the so-called Starship, and he says he hopes it will launch an unmanned mission to Mars by 2024. John, I used to live next to SpaceX in Texas. A lot of house shaking going on there.
Exciting times. We'll see you tomorrow.